You're listening to Quantum Conversations with Karen Curry Parker. Join us as we explore new frontiers in consciousness, science, and evolution. And now here's your host, Karen Curry Parker.
We sometimes think that we need to heal the world. This perspective automatically implies that the world is broken and in need of fixing. But what if the world isn't broken? What if we're actually exactly where we need to be? If we think the world is broken, then we, as inhabitants of the world, must also assume that we perceive ourselves as broken. Quantum science shows that we're in a constant state of creativity and that what we create in the world is determined by the meanings we assign neutral concepts or archetypes. Stop for a minute. Take a breath. Think about money. Money is, in and of itself, a neutral concept. Money is simply an archetype. But when you think about money, it actually triggers a photon storm in your brain. This photon storm triggers a reaction in your occipital lobe that then causes your brain to create neurotransmitters that then produce an emotional response. For some of you, the thought of money is fun, plentiful, and abundant. And for some of you, the idea of money might be anxiety-provoking, maybe even frightening. The meaning that you give money determines the emotional response you have to it. This emotional response actually creates a vibrational frequency of energy that calibrates a powerful electromagnetic force field in your heart, which actually attracts into your life experience things that match the frequency of the electromagnetic field you just generated in response to your emotions. The world and you are not broken. If you want to create a different kind of world, a different kind of experience, you simply need to change the meanings you give your life. Hi, I'm Karen Curry Parker. Welcome to Quantum Conversations. I'm very excited to welcome today a special guest, Rashmi Khilnani, who was born in Chandigarh, India, and spent the first 6 years of her life in Egypt. After she established a global business with her former husband, she went on to study and teach with world-renowned avatars, gurus, and teachers, and became a specialist in energy medicine. She is on the forefront in bringing the ancient mystery school teachings of Egypt, India, Tibet, and China, as well as the teachings of the Essenes into current time, and making these wisdoms simple and accessible to people at all levels of soul journeying. Rashmi teaches and practices several healing modalities and has taught Reiki masters, doctors, scientists, and others from many walks of life the secrets of the mystery school teachings. She is one of the producers of the movie I, God, which features several leading-edge teachers, including Deepak Chopra, Greg Braden, Neil Donald Walsh, who have gathered together in this powerful movie and talk about their perceptions and their understandings of God, weaving together a collective dialogue about what is this energy of God that we talk about and that we seek. She's also the author of The Divine Mother Speaks, Buddha Speaks, and Shiva Speaks. And I can't wait to talk to her today because there's so many things I want to talk to you about. So welcome.
Thank you. Namaste from London.
So every once in a while, I am so blessed to have guests who have this giant body of understanding that they bring to the world. So I want to just invite you to start with us in just the very beginning of this dialogue of what is God? What is your understanding or your perception of God?
Well, in the film, everybody gives the answer, what do you believe, vis-a-vis God? And I'm probably the only speaker in the film that says God is not a belief, it's an experiential understanding that comes when we begin to release the energy of the mind through meditation or through transcendence of some sort of initiations, or when we become wholehearted, or when nature or something, where the separation dissolves And so for me, God, Karen, is all that is. And God, the divine spark, exists in each and every one of us, microcosm, and the universe is within us. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers it a little bit.
I think it's a great answer to a very big question. So, what I want to do is just kind of go through your three books just briefly and talk about kind of the major themes because they're a little bit different. And then I want to talk about how do we, in our human experience, live as humans, that's sort of the earth piece that you talk about, and still yet stay in that awareness of this God piece that is also all of who we are. So in your book, The Divine Mother Speaks, you channel the energy of Hathor. And one of the things that you talk about in this book so much is changes in frequencies of energies, particularly with the conclusion of the Mayan calendar and the energy of 2012. Can you tell me a little bit about that? And what do you think in relation to that is going on the planet right now?
Right. So we got a few questions there. We'll cover this as best as we can. Very good questions, I must say. Thank you. So the first book is called The Divine Mother Speaks, The Healing of the Human Heart. And as a teacher of many systems of Reiki energy mastery, it's not just Yusui and Tibetan like most people feel, but then there's original 7-degree mastery. There's 3 systems of Egyptian Reiki mastery, Sekam, Seishim, and Sekim. And then there's Rakuke, which is shamanic Reiki, and so on. And anyway, so after becoming a Sekam master and all these things over a long period, I was guided to, instead of creating the next step to Reiki, which would have been Hathor, because in the last initiation, Sekhmet, who is the more Kali-like version of the energies, shifts to Hathor, which is the sky goddess of ancient Egypt, who impulsed many golden ages in Egypt. And it's just synonymous with different aspects of the Divine Mother energies that is an archetypal energy within all of us. So that is really Reiki energy mastery made simple, energy mastery made simple, the wisdom teachings made simple, because understanding energy is so important for this wake-up time. Buddha Speaks was at the request of Bob Friedman, who's one of the greatest publishers of channel material on the planet. And I didn't think it would happen, but it did when I came to London. And that was a completely different frequency where I asked questions like you're asking me about this wake-up time, how to be human and divine at the same time, to Lord Buddha within myself through my Buddha nature. And so that's all about non-doership, detachment, and how to bridge the gaps in this now time with Buddha wisdom and meditation and so on, and yet be off the world, in the world, but not off the world, sorry. And Shiva Speaks Conversations with Mahavatar Babaji. Many people have read Autobiography of a Yogi. And so the Guru of Gurus, Lord Shiva, 1008 is Mahavatar Babaji, and he's the Christ Yogi who's here to see 7 billion wake up to Christ consciousness. And so that book is again question and answers to Mahavatar Babaji, who I consider to be my best friend, my boss, my higher self, my synonymous with everything. And I've seen him transcendentally many times. And he sent me to America to do the mission of 3 books, the film and the wake up, of many of the spiritual leaders of America. It was grandiose. I was like, right, how is that going to happen? But a lot of it did and still is through all the radio shows and so on. So I don't know if that begins to answer a little bit about the books there.
Absolutely. So talk to me a little bit about 7 billion waking up. What does that mean?
Well, this is the first time, Karen, that in the history of the universe as we know it, that a prime creator or the source energy has decided this experiment of the wake up of all of humanity and Gaia herself ascending to 5th dimensional and beyond multidimensional frequency without actually leaving the body as Jesus did and then coming back, or like we do when we die. For example, death is not death, it's just change. So that is the experiment, and it's never happened before, ever. And so, that's why a lot of the beings from other planets, the Pleiadians, the Sirians, and many beings, the Hathor beings from 13th dimension, are here in this time-space continuum sliver to see what's going to happen. And many are also benevolently helping in this wake up cycle after 26,000 years of patriarchal energy, which is not a gender thing, but it's that energy of fight, flight, manipulation, control, mind energy, as opposed to the heart energy, which has a much larger spectrum of intelligence, as you know, Karen. So, it's a huge subject, but it's this ascension cycle that we're all in, which is about being human and divine at the same time, which you touched upon in your brilliant questions there. And so at the moment, I'm really beginning to feel my avataric nature. People have said that to me, and then I'm like, oh no. And then it's like, oh, well, yeah, I am feeling one with all that is a lot of the time, and feeling that serving all is serving myself, because all is one in the unified field of consciousness. And at the same time, I'm very human. I can burst into tears and get upset and all sorts of things. And I don't think it's about being either or anymore. How do you feel about that?
I love that you said that, because I think that, I have been in the spiritual community literally my entire life. I always joke, I'm not one of those people that escaped the corporate job. I had to do this from the time that I was 18 and there was no choice. And, and at the same time, I'm a mom. I have 8 children. I have a husband. I have dogs. I have parents who are aging. I have, a human life. Wow. And, in this community, the spiritual community, people talk a lot and have for years. And I've lived in some of the interesting places on the planet. I spent a couple of years living in Sedona, Arizona, for example. And everybody at the time, or the energy, at least in the city at the time, was all about we're ascending. And sort of this idea that would be leaving this earthly experience and going somewhere else and having this completely mystical, blissed out process all the time. And I kept thinking, that's great, but I can't ascend right now because I have kids to feed. So I have to do, I'll ascend later when I have time. And I think that there's something really interesting about this idea of ascension. And I think there's an idea sometimes that it's about this leaving process. We're going to leave, right? And I often say, no, it's not so much about leaving as it is about really getting here and being here simultaneously as being there. And of course, there is no there. It's not about here and there. It's about qualities of energies, I believe. But I really want to talk for just a minute about, because you do this so beautifully. You're a very practical mystic. You're a modern mystic. You're not, you're not operating.
Shaman, and I think that just one point is coming up here, which is quite important for everybody now, is that I meet, like you, so many New Agers. I'm a New Age teacher, but I'm not a New Ager. So I'm more like an urban shaman, and my cave is a hotel. I've lived in a hotel room for 9 years now, sold everything I had to do the mission. And I'm driven as a bodhisattva to within free will and the higher good, help in the wake-up cycle. I think I knew I was born to do that as a kid when I was conceived in ancient Egypt. I always say ancient Egypt, in current Egypt, sorry. The Great Pyramid of Giza. I say that in every single radio show. It's really funny because time is simultaneous. And that is that, I teach about the heart. It's so important because the heart is the portal now into multidimensionality, which we already are, but we were asleep to for such a long period of time. And the last time on the ecliptic all of this happened was Atlantis, as we know. And this time, hopefully, that's not going to happen again, the misuse of energies to that extent. And instead, we are going to ascend. Gaia has ascended in so many ways. And we are part of Gaia, Mother Earth. And but that is the grounding of the heart energies. And so when I work on spiritual leaders even, I find that the energy of the wisdom is in one direction, the heart is somewhere else, and the grounding may or may not be happening. And being spiritual airhead, is not going to work now. It's just very important to be embodied in that which we teach, or that, as a healer, not to be perfect. It's not about being perfect. But it's about being, real and transparent and grounded.
And I think that journey, especially given sort of, I think, where we are in this shifting of energy frequencies, is so important. You talk a lot about grounding. Tell me a little bit about what you mean about being grounded, because that's something I think people ask me a lot about. How do I get grounded?
So the first book, The Divine Mother Speaks, has a wonderful set of Egyptian mystery school meditations where you connect to the pranic tube, which is all the chakras in a straight line. And if you were to put your thumb and index finger together, that's the diameter of the pranic tube. It's an etheric tube that connects all the chakras into one light body system. And then you send that down through the root chakra to the center of Mother Earth and her heart. And then you connect back up to the heart with breath. And then once again, you connect from the heart, your heart, with Mother Gaia's heart, up to the cosmic center of source. You know, whatever that is for you, you just intend it, because attention plus intention equals manifestation. That's universal law. And then with an in-breath, you bring heaven and earth energies into your heart, and on an out-breath, you slowly begin to open the 1,000 petal golden lotus of your heart and see how much it wishes to open, because we can't push and pull that. You know, all of humanity has a broken heart. And because 26,000 years, it's in our cellular memory with all this patriarchal energy, and now we're waking up to the goddess energy, which again is not a gender. It's the energy of being, allowing, intuition, many senses beyond the fifth sense. The sixth is psychic, but you could be channeling beings that may not even be at the same level of consciousness as yourself. And then the seventh sense, which is much more connecting to the higher good and the free will of all concerned, and our high source energy. And then beyond that, and so we're moving into being more sensual as well. So the grounding happens like that, or through walking bare feet, or through intending it, or through, there's a chapter on the archetypal energies in The Divine Mother Speaks. And so you just say earth, earth, earth 3 times, because we're in sort of bridging now. We're bridging, people like myself, yourself, we are bridging 3D with multidimensionality, you know, as we've just said. And massage and drumming, dancing. There are so many ways, and being in nature and lying on the floor, lying on the grass. You know, I just went to Holland Park and took my slippers off for a few minutes before it started raining, you know, in the grass there. And all these things help. Root vegetables. You know, there's so many ways. The reason why, Karen, humans tend not to be grounded is because they're, you know, we're very mind oriented, because the patriarchal energy is about control and fear of the unknown. The mind is very fearful of things that it doesn't know, and it finds it very difficult to be in the present moment. So it's always in anxiety of the future, or, you know, stuff to do with the past. And so when you ground, you tend to feel your feelings. And there's a chapter on the book, The Divine Mother Speaks, Healing is Feeling, which is extremely important. And most people have dumbed down their feelings, and that's why they don't want to ground. And also because when you're in the mind, people tend to be extremely ungrounded. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And one of the things that you also talk about, which I think is difficult, because I think we have a lot of judgment around emotional energy, but you talk a lot about how to be present to your emotions, but to not be swept away into,
yes,
I think sometimes the chaos that emotions can cause.
Yeah. So, you know, in healing, as we know, if we recreate the pattern of pain or cellular memory or whatever it is of pain or trauma or dis-ease, just for a minute or so, you know, depending, then we've recreated the pattern and it can release. So emotion is energy in motion, and it needs to be able to move. So I suggest in the book, the Divine Mother suggests in the book, I am one with the unified field of consciousness, and I don't write my books, I speak them out. So how do I channel? I go into nothingness energy, and that is Nephthys energy in the Egyptian mystery school, or chalice energy in, you know, the Jesus Essene way. And when you go into nothingness energy, then you can access whatever you want, you know, in the everythingness energy. And that's how Einstein and all worked, and other geniuses, you know, they got their minds out of the way. So when you recreate the pattern, then you've healed the pattern, as opposed to suppression and repression, which leads to dis-ease, which is disease, and so on, mental, emotional, physical, and also spiritually. You know, people have tears in their auras when they've done a lot of drugs and various things that need to be released, you know, the miasms, the energies. And it can all be very simple now, because in this current energy, every minute of everybody's life is an initiation, And so if we just keep embracing what's coming, embracing, allowing, and coming back to connected heart, grounded energy, being in the moment, and working on being the observer of the mind, which is going to keep telling a lie that you're not good enough, etc., which is what your teacher, parent, minister, whoever your programming taught you. And then you can just question that and say, well, thank you, but no thank you. And the mind really is synonymous with the shadow. And it's also synonymous with the wounded child within. So the divine child within is our boss vis-a-vis ascension and heart soul energy. It's playful. It's already eternal. It's part of the soul energy. It is very creative. It's connected to the unified field of consciousness. The wounded child is the imprinting and all the trauma, starting from birth and being smacked and coming into generally a room full of light, and being made to cry and hung upside down and whatnot. So we can start healing all of that very, very quickly. And I call it holing now, because it's like dump the old stories, but where you need to feel a little bit, you just feel a tiny little bit. I mean, this is a deep subject, but I'm just trying to, simplify a couple of key points. Does that help at all?
Beautiful. And I love the idea of holing instead of healing, because I think we still tend to embrace, and I think, frankly, on an unconscious level, or maybe even a conscious level, embrace the identity of being broken. There's a certain celebration of being a victim that keeps us stuck there sometimes.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So that's the thing is, when people keep saying something is wrong with me, why not dump that story and choose a new story? And in the new story, if you come into the now moment, it's a blank, beautiful new canvas with a lovely set of paints on the side there. And you can begin again. And, you would have to probably do a little bit of clearing vis-a-vis some things that are stuck in there. But as we've said, don't make a 365-day Broadway hit of the victimhood part, and realize that somewhere in the back, you've also done that to somebody else. So when we go into cellular memory release and advanced sound wave energy therapy, which is extremely quick, it's not this huge, long-winded, past life regression thing. But you only go into a past life if it's important to do so, not to just get into a whole load of more stories, because then that stops you from the current situation. But if you do need to, then you can just see, and most of my students report that they had also done the abuse to that person in a previous life. It all links up, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes total sense.
Cause and effect, So we can forgive ourselves and forgive others, and then and the self-love piece is, of course, also huge. And all three books cover love a lot. The Shiva Speaks particularly covers truth, simplicity, and love, which are Babaji's teachings. And, self-love is just a key. The whole of Earth School is self-love. If we can't love ourselves, and most of us don't even know where to begin. Mm-hmm. So these books and other high-energy books like Autobiography of a Yogi, The Pleiadian Agenda, and Barbara Marciniak, Barbara Ann Cloud's books, certain books help us to connect to these energies of self-love and so on,
Beautiful. So I have to keep it real, because we're here.
Yeah.
So today we are on the eve of another terrorist attack in London, in Manchester, and people are reeling as it always happens. And we are in the midst of an emotional storm of outrage, of shock and sadness, and of course anger for some people. Talk to me about, how do you, as a person who is grounded, who is consciously accessing higher dimensions and living it in this form, how does a person with this, who's seeking to create this alignment with the fifth dimension, how do you create the energy of forgiveness, and how do you manage the emotional kickback that you have when you live in love and you see expressions that maybe don't feel loving in the world? What do we do, and how do we be with that?
Well, we just talked a little bit about that here, where we said cause and effect plays out through lifetimes. And so as we go deeper within, we can see that in a previous lifetime, we've also been, we swap roles between being victim and being the terrorist, if that makes sense. That's one part of it. There's a much bigger story than what meets the eye. vis-a-vis the terrorism and all, it's extremely sad. That's why sold the roof over my head to make this film, I, God. I was the angel seed investor. It was a long, difficult journey. It was supposed to be completed in 9 months. It took a lot longer. And I hope this film gets out there, and I'm working, all the time with radio and whatever it takes to get a film like this out there, because it helps people to understand that though they speak different languages and though they have different religions and spiritual perspectives, it's also asking deep questions of people of the street about why are you here? Is there right and wrong? Is there good and evil? Does God judge you after you go? Is there life after death? And so on. And so it's asking the heads of different religious denominations, but also pagans and Amit Goswami, quantum physicists, and my perspective, which is the Reiki, goddess, divine mother energies, and, universal life force energy perspectives. And so my father was murdered, Karen, in Bombay, and I had to go and identify the stolen goods. And they told me he's there, the police, which was quite funny. And I said, oh, well, I'd like to meet him. And they said, no, it'll be too upsetting. And I said, no, I would. And so I met him, and I had my head very close to him because he was a very polite guy and he didn't speak very loudly. And he was only 23, and I forgave him. It was just God's grace. It was Jesus's grace in that moment to me that I was able to forgive him and feel compassion for his parents that were not going to receive money in the village now because this guy was going to go to jail for 22 years or something, which was how old he was. And, but of course, that kind of grace doesn't come to everybody. You see, it's all very well to say Trump this and ISIS that and so on, so this, but the light and dark is playing out in each and every one of us. I don't know if you agree with this.
I absolutely agree with this.
Therefore, when we point fingers at our politicians and at our systems or at another religion, like making Muslim religion bad or a particular race bad, I mean, it's ridiculous because really in past lives we've been all of these different things. Sometimes we've been yellow or black or brown. Sometimes we've been Native American. Sometimes we've been Tibetan. And we are one humanity. And at the end of the day, everybody has a shadow within them. And that is the mind energy. And I find it across the board. I mean, I've had to work on my own mind, even in this lifetime, though I've been enlightened in past lives. It's a constant focus. But it doesn't have to be, impossible. And as we begin to shift in baby steps ourselves, we find our world begins to change. And then we're not part of certain scenarios. And if it's happening way far away from you, well, focus on what's under your nose and help your family and work with the guys on the street that are homeless right next to you on my street in Kensington. I'm taking them fruit or whatever, and work with the individuals right under your nose, because that's where we can make a difference and starting with ourselves.
Beautiful and very well said. Very well said.
And of course, sending prayers, for world peace, meditations for world peace. My profile picture is just, I even got on my birthday, the hotel tribe, I got all the managers in their suits and everything. The porters were allowed to come and sit with us because we're all one. Whether you're a general manager or you're a porter, everybody's one. Whether I meet the queen or I meet, the guy who sweeps the road for us, they're equally important. And we have to stop chasing people just because they're famous or they got 6 million likes on Facebook. People are buying these likes or left, right, and center. And just because somebody gets a whole load of likes doesn't mean that they're enlightened even. You know what I'm saying? And you don't even have to be fully enlightened to become a good human, to be compassionate, to be giving and loving and forgiving.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, I love what you've just said. And I think it's really important for all of us when we start going into Trump this, ISIS this, so-and-so that, to recognize that it's us, it's a reflection of a part of us in the world, and we all have an obligation to shift that away if we choose to not like it.
They go on about Melania and Trump, poor woman, bless her. And it's like in your own family. I mean, are you getting on with your husband? Are you getting on with your wife? Are you getting on with your kids? And it's okay if you're not. But, it's like the work is under our nose and we're pointing fingers in some other country, in some distant land. It's not going to cause any kind of shift to happen. in that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the other part of it that's so important, and this is a key piece, as you said, the work is under our nose. And when people, I'm watching people on Facebook today, obviously responding to this event, and people feel powerless. And yet you're not powerless. Go outside and do something in the realm in which you have influence right now, because you do.
If I ask somebody to give £1, they're like, oh no, my house, my this. I sold the roof over my head to do the mission. Now, I'm not saying that's everybody's path. It's not everybody's path to be like a Buddha, and give up. I had homes all across the globe. We were huge distributors for General Motors, earth moving equipment. We were going to become billionaires in Iraq and all these places. And then thank God I didn't, because how many beds can you sleep in, et cetera, et cetera. And now people say, oh, but you're so extravagant living in a hotel. But that's my mission for now. And even though I'm reaching the edge of my money, I know that somehow I'll fly. And if I don't, I'll make an artistic place out of a slum or wherever I'm going to land. To be fearful of the future is ridiculous, because it doesn't exist. And then we draw that to us.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Rashmi Khilani, thank you so much for joining me. If you would like to connect more with Rashmi's work, you can find more about her on her website, rashmikhilani.com, as well as reiki-energy-mastery.com, or find out more about her amazing movie, igod.com. All of her books, as well as access to the movie igod.com, are available on Amazon. And I just want to thank you again for joining me and for continuing to commit yourself to doing the work that you do on the planet. It's quite profound and quite beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen, for your work too. Many, many blessings.
Thank you. We are not healing. We are holing. This is the powerful word Rashmi gave me in our conversation together. Our intention, as we wake up and consciously evolve this world, needs to not be to fix what's broken, but to instead focus on what is working and shift our perspective to new meanings. Meanings full of potential and possibility, abundance, sustainability, equitable, and peaceful for all. We are collectively in the process of turning our attention to a higher level of experience, creating new meanings that empower us and solving the challenges facing humanity today. This is an era of the heart, where compassion rules the day, and the meanings we evolve for the world serve the greater good of the whole. Holing. I like that. If you'd like to discover your unique role in the evolution of the world, I invite you to visit our Quantum Conversations Facebook page. While you're there, you can get a free copy of your human design chart and free report to go along with it. This powerful tool is going to help you discover new and powerful meanings around who you truly are, so that you can do what you came here to do and be who you came here to be. I'm Karen Curry Parker. Thank you for joining me today for Quantum Conversations. May the meanings you give your life lift you up and empower you to express all of the magnificence of who you truly are.
Thanks for listening to Quantum Conversations with Karen Curry Parker. For more information, visit joyfulmission.com.